Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to do a 2-month impressions video of the Panasonic GH5s. So I got this camera around January, I think. So I had it for just around 2 months, and I've been using it pretty extensively. I've used it on a couple of paid jobs, some pro bono jobs that I've done for people, and then just taken it out and been playing with it just to test it. So yeah, I just want to kind of give you my impressions of it. It's not going to be like a full review because there's a lot of different features that I haven't really utilized of the camera and some other things that I don't quite understand completely, etc. So in time, maybe I'll do that. People were excited about this. So they didn't really know what it was going to be. And then I think when it came out, maybe some people were disappointed. And then with a lot of different cameras that came out in 2018, this one got overshadowed. So yeah, I think it's totally relevant and a really awesome camera. Still, you know, it's not that old. A totally new sensor. I believe it uses the same sensor as the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. They have a lot of the same features. Dual native ISOs, the bigger sensor. So that camera has been really popular. This has, I'm pretty sure, the same sensor and a lot of the same features. So likewise, it's still relevant. You can shoot 4K, 24 frames per second, and 30 frames per second internally. 10-bit 422, and then you can also shoot in 4K 60 frames per second internally, but that's 8-bit 420. You can shoot externally 4K 60, both cinema 4K, 4K DCI, and 4K UHD, 60 frames per second, 422 10-bit externally. You can shoot in 1080p, 8-bit 420, anywhere from 2 frames per second up to 240 frames per second. The 240 frames per second does have a crop of the sensor. This also loses a little bit of resolution, not resolution, but clarity. It's pretty soft. There's a lot of artifacting, especially if you try to use Vlog in that mode. But for a little camera like this to offer 240 frames per second is good. I wouldn't probably use it on something professional, depending on what it is, but for YouTube and other things, you know, it's really cool to have 240 frames per second. I don't really know right now. I haven't tested it extensively at what point in the high frame rates that you start losing quality. I've tested, I've shot in 120 and it's still really good, but then I don't know if like 180 is good. So maybe in a future video, I'll maybe take a more extensive look at HFR so you can see. In addition to Vlog L, which comes with this camera, you also get hybrid log gamma, which is another wide dynamic range picture profile, but whereas Vlog is like a flat, low contrast, low saturation profile, which tries to maximize dynamic range. Hybrid log gamma is a saturated, contrasty profile that's meant for quick turnarounds, but also has really wide dynamic range because it's meant for 10-bit HDR delivery. But you can absolutely use it for Rec 709, 8-bit delivery, and it's a really nice codec. I found that like in terms of like color reproduction and noise levels, it's like probably the best. Like I have sort of looked at Cine D, but been a little bit disappointed in Cine D. I've used standard or maybe natural as well on a couple jobs where there was just going to be turnaround without any color grading. I noticed that in those profiles that the red channel for some reason is really noisy. So if you have something red and you're using those more standard profiles, there's a lot of noise in the reds of the image. And I'm not really sure if that's across all of ISOs. I would have to do some testing on that too. But I haven't noticed that there's a noise problem with red in either HLG or Vlog. For pretty much everything that I do that I have the choice in the matter, I would choose HLG or Vlog and then not even bother with Cine D, Cine V, natural or standard or anything like that. I do really like Vlog, so one thing that I learned is that Vlog L, it actually operates from, so on your waveform monitor, instead of being crushed, the black levels clipped at 0, the black levels are crushed at 7.5, I think, thereabouts, and then the highlights are clipped at around 80 as opposed to 100. So once you know that, you'll be able to monitor your exposure accurately with the waveform. but you really can't monitor your exposure in Vlog with the histogram, because the histogram will show that you're not clipping anything because it's looking for things to clip at 100, I believe. So I shot a few things just messing around with the camera using the histogram in Vlog, and then when I looked at them, I noticed that whites were clipped, and that wasn't being illustrated on the histogram. So if you're using Vlog, definitely reference the waveform and not the histogram, which is another thing that's really great about the Panasonic GH5 and GH5s, is that you have waveforms and vector scopes as ways to monitor your exposure and also your color and saturation in the camera. So really nice exposure and color monitoring tools built into the camera. Another good feature is that you've got 2 zebra levels that you can set in the camera. So you can do one at say 100 to let you know that you're clipping your highlights, and then you can set one lower so you can monitor where say your skin tones are set, or something like that. So you've got zebra 1 and 2 that you can set in the camera. You've got peaking, low and high, but you can also change the color of the peaking. And I found the peaking to be really helpful and accurate, unlike say Sony Alpha cameras. The LCD is really sharp. You can rely on it to judge focus. Likewise, the EVF is sharp and bright, and also just reliable. The problem with the LCD that I've run into is in bright daylight, really not impossible, but really hard to see it. It's reflective and not bright enough really to combat bright sunlight. I also noticed that there was some light leak in the EVF when I was trying to compensate by using the EVF. I was still getting a lot of light into there, and it was making it hard to see. Might be because I wear glasses and I wasn't like sealing it off enough, maybe. So that's a problem. Battery life is good. It's not great. Apparently people think that it's not the best, but it's definitely better than the older generation of Sony Alpha cameras when my battery just died. I think, I haven't measured it, but just anecdotally, I would say you can record in 4K, 10-bit 422 for more than 2 hours on a battery. I like the full-size HDMI, and there is also 2 SD card slots, so it's good because you can do like a redundant backup recording, so it'll record to both cards so you have a backup, but you can also do relay recording, so once one card fills up, it'll automatically switch to the second card without cutting or any sort of stopping the recording. And then you can also set one card to record video and the second card to save photos. So if you're doing something where you're doing both things during the day, you'll have one for video, one for photo, just to make it easier on you to organize. There's a lot of customizability, so there's like 6 function buttons that you can program. This is, I think, a function button down here as well. On the mode dial, you've got C1, C2, C3, where you can save different profiles. So like those shooting modes that you find that you're using the most often, you just program the settings how you like them, and then you can quickly switch between them. So if you, one problem with, say the BMPCC 4K, it's really easy. The operating system, or I guess the interface, is really easy to switch between modes without going deep into menus. You can really do most everything right on the monitoring screen. This camera you can actually program your quick menu and put like all the things that you like on here, so you can switch between things more easily. It's not quite as easy as the BMPCC 4K, but it's not bad. However, like I was mentioning, you can easily set things to C1, C2, C3, and then so you want to be in like 24 frames per second, for your main roll, and then if you want to switch to high frame rates for your B roll, you could easily do that by programming it into like C2 or C3. And then not only do you have C1, C2, C3, but once you get into C3, up here in the touchscreen, you actually have C3.1, C3-2, and C3-3. So there's more custom settings or profiles that you can program. I already have a Atomos external recorder, so I can do 422. I can do 4K 60, 422 10-bit externally. So I really like that. I was working on a project with some guys, and I was just shooting internal 4K 8-bit 420, and in vlog, and I would say, you know, for the most part, image looks really good, but there was a bright blue sky that day, and I had a lot of sky in some of the shots, and I noticed that when you apply a Rec 709 LUT, like the Panasonic to Vlog to Rec 709, you start getting a lot of banding and artifacting in the sky. 422 10-bit can make a huge difference in your video. So the fact that you can do 60p, 4K, DCI, UHD, 10-bit 422 is awesome. However, of course, you do need an external recorder for that. Whereas, say, for the BMP-CC 4K, you can do that internally. But everything, I mean, all the other negatives I would say about the camera is just down to learning curve and me not quite getting up to grips with it yet, and maybe fumbling around in different situations, trying to get to grips with the camera. In-body image stabilization, not really a big deal to me. If you're on a really long telephoto lens, then it might be problematic for you, but the speed boosters also allow you to use lenses with optical image stabilization in them, so that's a good thing. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, I really like the camera, and it's not perfect by any means. Oh, I guess another negative in terms of image quality, dynamic range is fine. I think it's pretty competitive with just about anything out there in the price range or in the kind of segment. One thing where it might not compete so great is in highlight roll-off. I notice is a little bit harsh, a little bit digital looking, where you have a very sharp delineation between what the camera can see, and bam, clipped. I don't know, I haven't seen the BMP-CC 4K firsthand, so I don't know if Blackmagic has been able to finesse that any better. That's it, really. I just want to give my quick first impressions of the camera after using it for 2 months. I think it's a great camera. I think they're still kind of unmatched with what they're offering for the price. If you can get past the Micro Four Thirds, which I think is, you know, overrated in terms of like the differences that big sensors make. So if there's things about the camera, if you guys are even interested in it, I mean, maybe nobody's really interested in it. This camera kind of fell by the wayside, I think, over the course of last year. So maybe nobody really cares about it anymore, but I still think it's relevant. I obviously bought it recently. If you want to see anything else about the camera, let me know. There's a lot of features in here that I don't even think I've ever shot any photos with it, to be honest. But there's also some other video-centric features that they built in here that are sort of like tricksy, kind of like, you know, niche kind of things that you can do. So yeah, just let me know if there's anything in particular, any tests you'd like to see with the camera. And I'll, you know, if I can do it, if it's something within my realm of expertise, I'll definitely take a look at it. So thanks for watching this video, and see you next time. Bye.